So why do you do the things you do? Are you a good person, and if you are you a good person for good reasons? I guess I've been thinking a lot about this kind of thing as it relates to my own life recently. Just the question of, why do I do the things that I do? And do I do those things for good reasons, right? I don't have a script because I was going to write some stuff earlier today, like at least journal, but I didn't have time. But I still wanted to record this video, mostly to keep onto my schedule, I'll be honest. Not because I really wanted to get this out, but because I need to keep onto the schedule, because that's a promise that I made to myself, and I think that it's important to keep those promises. But yeah, so that means that this is basically just like straight from my consciousness, stream of consciousness. That's what it's called. But yeah, I've been thinking just about the reasons as to why I do things, because I think I go through like phases as to my motivations and the things that I want to pursue, and I think everybody's like that, right? But the thing is, recently I've found a pattern, and so I think my motivations have been less than wholesome recently. It's not anything that's particularly bad, right? But I think I've just found myself in this trap almost of, so I found myself in this trap of chasing specifically money, status, and power, right? As that kind of like trifecta, right? And so I don't know how I fell into that, right? It just kind of naturally happened, and I was totally aware of it, right? Like I was totally aware of the fact that I was now suddenly chasing these things, right? But I didn't give much thought as to why or how, right? I didn't really question it. That's the thing. I didn't question it. And the thing is, I came to a realization not too long ago that that's not really what I want, right? And I wonder, how often do we chase things because of different things that happen to us or different experiences that we face? You know, things that influence our perceptions and our desires, and we never really take the time to re-examine them, right? So essentially for me, I think I was in a relationship a while back where slowly the focus of what I wanted to do with my life essentially began to shift towards money. Not because I was being pressured or because of anything with that situation, but I think you just kind of adapt to the people you're around, and that's something that was kind of more valued with the person I was with and like that person's family, right? And so I found myself like just little by little valuing money more and more, and valuing status more and more, because it became a more important metric in my life than it had been before. Because before I was fine with like making shit money, but doing certain things that I like maybe really cared about, right? That perspective started to shift, and I didn't really notice it because it was slow, right? Like that's how these things happen. They're slow, and you don't even notice them until the time comes where you see how wide the gap has formed, right? But yeah, so that's kind of like how that started, I think. And then another thing, and this is something for its own video later on at some point, kind of maybe going deeper into this, but essentially throughout that relationship, I started to lose more of a sense of kind of myself and my own kind of desires, my goals, my ambitions, the things that I cared about, right? And I even had to take a lot of time to not chase my own career. And that is a loaded situation. There's so much to unpack there, but for a long time I just couldn't really give much thought to like my own career, my own kind of achievements, my own advancements, any of those kinds of things. And I ended that relationship, and then looking back on it, I felt scared, right? Because I almost felt like I had missed out, right? Because I felt like I had spent so much time without, grinding, right? Without hustling and working hard, using the word hustle is, but you know what I mean, right? Like just grinding and trying to like improve, right? I spent so much time without that I felt like I was behind. I felt like I kept falling behind over and over. And almost like as a rebound from that, like a defense mechanism from that, I became singularly focused on my own achievements, right? Like I used to be the kind of person, there's a question on the MBTI 16 personalities test, right? I don't know why this came to mind, but there's a question on there that asks you, are you the kind of person, would you pass up a good opportunity if you knew that someone else needed it more, right? And I just know that before, I used to be the kind of person who would answer yes to that, right? And now I'm very much not, right? Or at the very least, I still hesitate, right? Even though I still answer no, right? And so it just makes me think, like, how did that change? And it's because I became, after all this period of time where I really couldn't focus on myself, right? Where I had so much taken out of me, essentially. I became so focused on myself afterwards, because after experiencing that, right, I don't want to fall behind anymore, and I don't want to let anyone kind of take anything from me, right? I gave so much that I felt like I now had to singularly focus on myself, right? And so, on some level, that was good, right? Because you don't want to be the kind of person who will just let everyone walk all over you, right? And give everything of yourself to others, right? Because that's not helpful as well, right? Like there's a reason why, on an airplane, you have to put the oxygen mask over your face before helping anyone else first, right? There's no point to helping others if you can't even help yourself in the first place. There's no point to supporting others if you can't support yourself in the first place, because it's just not sustainable, right? And so on some level, it was good that I learned that lesson, but you don't want to go too far. And that's what happened with me, because I became so engrossed with my own kind of development, with doing things for myself, helping myself, right? That little by little, I just began to say no to so many more things, right? And I stopped focusing. I started focusing on other people less and less. And I started focusing on helping people less and less. And that's like a thing, right? Because all this is slow. But what I've noticed is, just as the development as time goes on has trended towards just caring about other people less, right? Because I felt so vulnerable and I didn't want any more of myself to be taken, essentially. And there's a recovery period where maybe you have to be like that, but you can't stay like that forever, because it's just not, at least in my case, it's just not the way I want to live, right? And that's something that I've realized, because I didn't know that I was living that way, right? I thought I was still like doing good things and still caring about people and trying to help people and everything, right? But this is where it wraps back into the question at the beginning, which is, why do you do the things you do, right? Because I like to think that I'm still, I was about to say being a good person, but rather I'll say I'm still acting as a good person, right? I'm still doing good things. I'm still trying my best to help people, and trying my best to support people and to provide people with a good experience. And I'm trying to help, just be a positive influence in the lives of others. But why? Why am I doing that, right? It's like I'm working at a company right now that helps people, right? A company that has a positive influence. But why, right? Why am I really working at that company? For the status and the money, right? That's the motivation there. It's nice that I get to say that I'm working for a company that helps people, but why am I really doing it? I gotta be honest with myself, right? And it's like, why do I help people? Is it really because I care about them? Because I know I used to be that kind of person. I used to really care about people. Do I do that because of that? Or is it because I want the appreciation, right? Do I want the experience of helping someone? Do I want the reputation? Do I want the connections? Do I want to develop the relationships that result from that, right? Why do I really want to help people? I've just been kind of like delving deeply into those motivations recently, because of all things, this was triggered. This insight really was triggered. I've been watching Game of Thrones, right? And I actually just finished it recently, and I've got opinions on it that might be controversial, but essentially, if you've never watched Game of Thrones, there's a character, Jon Snow, and he's just like a good guy, right? I think there's a lot of characters. I mean, there are other good characters as well, right? But there's a lot of characters in that show who are just awful, and the world's kind of awful, And it's kind of bleak, right? But throughout all that, Jon is a good person, right? And not just because he does good things, but because he has good motivations, right? He does good things for the right reasons. Hold on. Right, okay. So I got a call. So Jon Snow does good things, but he does them for good reasons, right? He genuinely just wants to save humanity. He wants to protect humanity from the dead. And that is one of his primary motivations for everything he does. And he does things that put himself at risk, and he does things that might make him a hated person, but he does it all. So he does all of that because he just wants to protect people. He wants to protect humanity, right? He does things where he literally just sacrifices himself and his reputation and everything, right? His his image in the eyes of others, he sacrifices it all for the things that he thinks is right because he has those pure motivations. He's not doing it for the appreciation. He's not doing it to become king. He's not doing it for any of those reasons. He genuinely wants to protect and help people, right? And seeing that just made me think, wow, right? Like, that is a strong level of conviction and personal just honor, right? Like, just those that motivation is so pure, right? And that's so just interesting to me, because I feel like maybe at one point I might have had, maybe not to that level, but something of that, right? Some amount of purity within those emotions, or within those kind of motivations, right? But I don't feel like I have that anymore, right? And as I was thinking about that, I also thought of, of all things, Legend of Zelda, right? The Twilight Princess, which is a game that I love. Link in that game, right? His whole motivation is that he just wants to, and I mean, that part of it is like, oh, like saving the kingdom or whatever, right? But really, he grew up in a village, and that village, along with all the other places, are put in danger, right? And the people he grew up with, right? People who are like family to him, right? Have been taken. They've been, have been taken hostage. They've been hurt, all these things. And he just wants to protect them. He's doing everything that he can to protect them because that's all he wants to do, right? And that's just another case of like, that's a person who's just, there is nothing else there. There's just pure good intent, right? And of course, like, yeah, I'm talking about characters, but it just makes me think, it makes me kind of like, just seeing those images makes me kind of look back at myself, right? And it makes me kind of reflect, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And I don't think I like the answer all that much, right? And I think that's interesting, because it's not something that I had thought maybe more on the surface level of, what are the things that I'm doing, right? Am I doing good things? Am I doing bad things, right? It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm doing good things. Doesn't matter if maybe the intentions aren't perfect, right? But I think that it does affect you on some level, right? At least it affects me on some level. And I just don't want to be like that anymore, I want to do things for the right reasons, and I want to have good intentions, right? And I know that I can, right? Because I think everyone's capable of that kind of change. I just didn't even notice that things had become this way, because I do think that it's strange, because I think as I've grown, I've learned a lot more, and I've learned how to be better and do better things, and I've grown in many cases, in many senses, right? That because I'm doing, one could say that I might be doing more good now, in a sense. I'm doing better now, but for worse reasons, whereas before I might have been doing worse, but for better reasons, right? It's and I just think that's interesting. But I want that trajectory to flip. I want to be doing better for good reasons. And I've just been thinking about that, right? And even then, I just wondered, why was I going back to it, why was I chasing money and things like that, and power and, status and stuff like that. Why was I chasing any of that in the first place? And I think really what I wanted was that's a deep question. I think I wanted people, right? Interactions with people, friendships, respect, appreciation. What's the word? Like external social validation is a hell of a drug, right? I want some of that too. All those things. That's really what I wanted. But that kind of, in some strange way, that kind of pushed me towards wanting to chase these other things, right? Instead, even though it would never bring me that, right? I don't think chasing it will bring it to me either. Like, I don't think, like, if you really want other people to appreciate you, chasing that, what good will that do? Right? I think there is like a nuance to motivation, and the motivation that you have that will have an effect. And so I think it's important. Because I have now felt what it's like to kind of veer off from that, right? And it's like, looking back at it, I just want to be like a good person, right? And like for good reasons, right? It'd be nice to have all those other things, right? But really, I just want to be a good person. And I think I'm slowly, like, I think it's interesting because once you become aware of something, like, it's weird to be like, I want to change my motivation, right? Because and this is something I talked about before, you can't escape yourself to like right yourself, right? So it's like my own motivation to change my motivation is itself a motivation, right? But what is that motivation? And it's like, I think by virtue of just becoming aware of the fact that I've been motivated by this certain thing, right? Just that awareness has caused me to shift my motivation already, right? But I know that there's still a little bit of like, this is why journaling is important. I haven't been journaling a ton recently because I've actually been pretty busy, and that's like another video that will be coming out. But I've been not journaling, and that's something that's helpful because this is what journaling helps with, right? This kind of like feeling of, once you like being able to recognize your motivations. Self-awareness is what you develop by journaling. And I don't know, I think I'd be able to, if I had journaled on what I'm talking about right now, I think I might be a little bit more secure in what I'm saying, right? But right now, this is really all just coming straight. Like, I'm basically journaling by talking into this camera. But yeah, and what I've arrived at is having good motivations is good. I don't know how much this helps, but I just think it's important to think about why you're doing things, right? Because you might realize that the reason, like, you might realize that you were chasing a proxy motivation this whole time, right? Like, for me, I was chasing achievement and like status and money and all these things, right? I was chasing that because what I really wanted was maybe a sense of validation or appreciation from other people, right? Like, that's what I really genuinely wanted. Everything else was just a proxy motivation for that. And once you realize that, it suddenly feels so empty, right? But that's a good thing, because I don't feel empty, but the motivation feels empty. And likewise, anything that I was doing for those motivations feels empty, right? Because, maybe on some level, those motivations will help you get to where you really want to be and get to what you really want. right? But it also might not. And what I realized was by trying really hard to chase, again, like money and status, by really trying for that and feeling motivated by that, I was motivated to do certain things that now that I really understand what my real true motivations are, I no longer feel the desire to do those things, right? And instead I feel the desire to do things that maybe I didn't prioritize, but that really get me to where to what I want, right? To where I want to be, right? And then I think of that in combination with like really taking a look at what it is that you want and why you want those things, right? Developing that self-awareness, I think it's important because that's how you develop, I guess, maybe just a level of genuineness throughout your life and throughout your day, right? Because if you can really be aware of your motivations and how you feel about those motivations, I think that will start to influence all the actions that you take, right? And, you know, your perspectives and all that. And I mentioned in another video, I think that, you know, what you are is like, you are the operating system in each moment, right? And the motivations that you have are almost kind of like environment variables in that operating system. The motivations that you have will influence your decisions, your decision making in each moment, right? And that is important for who you are, right? I just want that to be good, right? And I know that if I can really understand those motivations and if I can make them good, I can be just better, you know? I don't know. I feel like this has been kind of aimless. Sorry, I was reading something. It's been kind of aimless, but yeah, motivation's important. Rather, not motivation's important, but the motivations that you have are important. Why those motivations? But yeah, I hope that somehow this word vomit has helped you. Like I mentioned, I am keeping a strict schedule of myself of releasing this videos every Thursday and every Sunday, no matter what, right? And so far, I think, you know, almost all of my videos, I think maybe I've released like 18 or something like that, and almost all of them have no views, like not even one. Like, dude, even I don't watch them. But that's not what this is about, right? Going back to motivation, I'm not doing this for I'm not doing this for everyone to see. It'd be nice if I was able to help people, but I think what's good about this is that it keeps me consistent, right? And it's like, you know what? I could keep making videos twice a week for the rest of this year, right? For the rest of 22, and have no one see it, right? I will have appreciated the ability to remain consistent with it because, and this is something that I actually have a plan I'm working on another video for, but that ability to prove to yourself that you can do something is monumental, right? Like, me being consistent with these videos has allowed me to take on other things that I never would have thought I'd be able to do. And I've just been doing this for like a couple months now, right? So it's crazy how important it is to be able to keep your own promises to yourself and to prove to yourself that you can do things, because that will just change everything. But that's another video. Cool. Hope this has helped you. That's all.